Welcome once again to The Living Word. I have here a rare and unique book. It has an important place in the story I have for you a little later in this program. But first, a familiar gospel song played by the Salvation Army Band, recalling the words, "Take the name of Jesus with you." The story of the hymn we've selected for this program is contained in the life and work of a truly remarkable man. When I tell you he wrote what some people have called the Second Bible, then you may guess that I'm referring to John Bunyan, an uneducated tinker who became known as the Immortal Dreamer. And by the way, if you don't happen to know what a tinker is, it was a name given to men who used to wander the English countryside, eking out a penny here and there by mending pots and pans. The name comes from the sound of a small hammer on metal, a tinker, a very small and unimportant man in the public affairs of the 17th century. In any case, John Bunyan was born in the little English village of Elstow in 1628. Here, as a lad, he not only attended the village church, but with great pride rang the steeple bells every Sunday morning and evening. Which brings us to the book loaned to us for this program. It's a special edition of Pilgrim's Progress, published in 1880, and this particular book is now a collector's item. In the year 1879, it was decided to restore certain sections of Bunyan's old church in Elstow, and the church wardens had a brilliant idea. Why not take some of the old oak beams from its original construction in the year 1530, cut them into thin layers, and use these wooden layers in the covers of a special edition of the Bunyan masterpiece? Well, this was done, and here you see some of the old oak from Bunyan's church, expertly set by some unknown bookbinder, and bordered with leather. The small portrait of Bunyan is taken from a lifelike pencil sketch which can be seen in the British Museum. At the bottom, an inscription reads, "Warranted, made of the oak taken from Elstow Church, previous to restoration, 1880. As I say, a rare collector's item, making its first television appearance. Now, let's take a look at Bunyan the man, and how he came to write Pilgrim's Progress. A free thinker, he grew up at a time when free thinking in England could cost a man his liberty and even his life. He served in Cromwell's army during the Civil War, but his service as a common foot soldier only impressed him with man's greater battle with his own sins and weaknesses in striving to attain the good life. When he left the army in 1648, he turned to preaching, supporting himself and his family by mending pots and pans. For 5 years, Bunyan's preaching had brought him increasing popularity and prominence. But when the Act of Uniformity was passed, the state church became the only authorized place of worship. Bunyan honored the law and the king, but he felt bound by a higher duty to preach the gospel. In the eyes of the law, he was not only a nonconformist, but an unlettered nonconformist, and this was intolerable. Bunyan was clapped into Bedford jail, and here he stayed for 12 long years. While Bunyan and his family suffered, and all pleas on his behalf failed, he was often extended kindness by his jailers. His cell was usually left unlocked, and he was able to visit his family from time to time. Books and writing materials were provided, and on a few occasions he preached to private gatherings. It was during this imprisonment that John Bunyan wrote what must be considered one of the literary masterpieces of all time, the allegory he called Pilgrim's Progress. The book has run into unnumbered editions over the years and has sold millions of copies in almost every language. Although Batman and Robin are probably better known heroes today, then they engage in even more fantastic adventures. I'm sure you know something of the story. It's the account of the man Bunyan calls Christian and his struggles to reach the celestial city. The account is given as if it were a dream. The hero is dissatisfied with his way of life and leaves his family to seek his salvation. Evangelist directs him toward the shining light. On the way, he falls into the slough of despond. His burden causes him to sink deeper, but help lifts him out, and he continues on his way. His burden of guilt, which he has worn like a heavy sack on his shoulders, falls off when he reaches a wayside cross. This is only a temporary relief, for having dressed in armor at the hill Difficulty, he fights a fiend called Apollyon. Among other disasters along the way, Faithful is burned at the stake, while Christian is locked in a cage to watch him die. Finally, Christian crosses the river of death and is welcomed into the celestial city. Some years after he was released from prison, John Bunyan wrote a sequel to Pilgrim's Progress, in which Christian's wife, Christiana, and her children make the same journey. And it was for this work that Bunyan wrote the verses that appear in the hymn often appropriately called the Pilgrim's Song. The lines appear in a conversation in which Mr. Valiant, for truth, tells Mr. Greatheart of the battle he fought with 3 men who tried to prevent him from reaching his goal. The hymn contains encouragement for all Christian pilgrims who seek to overcome the difficulties along the way of life. Bunyan's words first appeared in the English hymnal in 1906 to the Sussex folk song tune Monksgate, discovered by Ralph Vaughan Williams. In the hymnals, a few alterations occur, dropping archaic and superstitious terms common to the 17th century, such as hobgoblins. So here are the spirited words and music, sung so often by congregations of many denominations.
He who would valiant be 'gainst all disaster, let him in constancy follow the Master. There's no discouragement shall make him once relent his first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. Whoso beset him round with dismal stories, do but themselves themselves confound, his strength the more is. No foe shall stay his might, though he with giants fight. He will make good his right to be a pilgrim. Since, Lord, thou dost defend us with thy Spirit, we know we at the end shall life inherit. Then fancies flee away, I'll fear not what men say. I labor night and day to be a pilgrim.
In his conclusion, Bunyan includes an instruction to the reader. There, if thou seekest them, such things to find as will be helpful to an honest mind. This, too, we can say of the Bible. For the lessons to be learned and guidance given in Pilgrim's Progress have their source there. The Living Word often records warnings to the Christian about the difficulties he will discover in life, but also there is the promise of help and comfort when trouble strikes. The psalmist offers praise to God for his help in times of trouble. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him, and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Though the language and thought forms of John Bunyan may be outdated, people still face most of the hardships and disaster his character Christian met on his journey through life. But we, too, can find the same help about which Bunyan wrote. He who would valiant be 'gainst all disaster, let him in constancy follow the Master. There's no discouragement shall make him once relent his first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. Join us again, won't you, when we will seek to learn more of the living Word, and of him who is, in very truth, the living Word. What do you really know about the world's bestseller? This free Bible correspondence course is yours just for the asking. Simply send a letter or postcard to The Living Word, care of this station. Do it today. Do it now.